People once believed that when someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes, a crow can bring that soul back to put the wrong things right.
Gasoline I smell? Victims aren't we all?
And welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. Now, on today's episode, we're going to head out on Devil's Night to go start some fires in the city, as we do. But you know what? We're also going to try and survive against this weird vigilante guy with white makeup on. With all that being said, though, today I'm going to do a little movie from 1994 called The Crow. Now, this movie has a whole lot of a backstory, which we'll get into today. It's very infamous, if you will, and it has a remake coming out later this year. So I thought, why the hell not? I'm going to cover it because it's also celebrating its 30th anniversary from the time you're hearing this. It's right around that time. But you know what? I couldn't do this alone all by my lonesome. No. I needed to bring on a guest with me today. And this person who I've brought on, this is actually a choice of theirs. It was, I think, on my list of what I'm going to cover and everything. But I knew as soon as he said he wanted to do it, I wanted to bring him on for it. So you know him as the co-host of the Men Who Like Movies podcast, which I've had Clayton Jones on before. But please welcome the other half of that podcast, Mr. Shawn Murphy. Hey, Shawn, how are you?
I'm incredible. Thank you so much for having me. I love this movie, and I'm so happy to get to talk to it.
Oh, yes. I'm so happy to have you on. Yeah, I mean, I came across you and Clayton's show not too long ago. I think we started around the same time, which is always cool. And just homosexuals doing, movie stuff. I'm down for. I'm down with.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes. We just wanted to. Well, all of our friends were tired of us talking about movies to them, so they were like, "You should probably just start a podcast. You can talk to each other, and then other people can listen if they want to."
Exactly. And then I'm just doing it by my lonesome. Right, I'm just doing it by my lonesome, so I'm like, all right, whatever. And I just think it was so fun having Clayton on for Ravenous, and I definitely want to have you guys on for another episode this year. We'll see how it goes on with that. I guess for me at least, I want to know a little bit. So as I said already, this movie is celebrating an anniversary this year. We do have that remake coming out later this year with Pennywise in it. I do want to just kind of get from you though, what is your history with this movie, and what is it about it that makes it, I guess, one of your favorite movies, I guess, is what it seems like to me, at least. So yeah, what is it about this? What is the history you have with it? And then I can kind of share a little bit of mine, because it's fairly recent, but I would love to hear what this movie kind of means to you and why you'd want to come and talk about it.
Yeah. So I actually saw this when I was younger. I was probably around 9 or 10, which is a little young, but I was precocious. So I watched a lot of R-rated movies. My parents didn't shy away from showing me things themes that, might be challenging. That wasn't something they shied away from. So I saw this on VHS first, and I just remember being so struck with just this entire story and everything about it. I love this movie. Is probably my favorite comic book movie or graphic novel movie, or at least one of them. There's such an incredible sadness, and yet there's such a glimmer of hope to this movie, which I find it walks that tightrope so well, which is surprising because most movies, it either has one or the other. Some of them, not all of them, can do both. But yeah, the visual style, I mean, Brandon Lee's performance is fantastic in this. I fell in love with it. And the more I see it, the more I appreciate something new.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that and kind of enjoy it for that, Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. And so, for me, I will say I was always familiar with this movie personally. Okay, you're going to laugh, but okay, so I did not watch this movie when I was a kid, but I remember back in high school, I remember there was one of those little Spirit Week days or something, and it was come as your favorite superhero or something. And because I wanted to be a little goth alt bitch or whatever, you know what I mean? I was right, I decided to do the Crow. So I literally didn't wear a costume or anything, but I literally put the makeup on and whatever. And I showed up at school like that, bitch. I literally did it with black eyeshadow or something, or eyeliner, excuse me. But yeah, it was just, oh girl, that's
incredible. I love it.
Literally up in Harford County, Maryland, people were probably like, what the fuck are you doing, you faggot? But no, I'm just but it's so true. But I had not watched it by then, really. And so I watched this last year, I think, actually. I think it was last year, maybe the year before. No, it had to have been last year. But I think, or maybe to 2020. No, actually, no, it wasn't last year. It was 2022 because I was working a temp job. And I remember because I didn't hardly do anything at that job, whatever. But I would watch movies on my phone sometimes just because, and The Crow was one of them. I was watching it as part of, I think, a watch along, or watch this type of movie every day in October or some shit, right? And yeah. And so I did that. And it was, I think, gothic horror, which I think this kind of is part of that, of course. And yeah, so I did that, which was super fun. And I will also second you on that. I do think this movie is actually pretty good. We'll definitely talk about what we like and what we do not like about it and all that fun stuff. But, I do think this movie is actually really good. And I give it a 4 on Letterboxd. I think I went up from a 3.5 to a 4 because I do think there is a level of I love the vibes of this movie. I like, how it's both an action, but kind of a little bit of a horror. I'm really into it. And I do enjoy this quite a bit. I would recommend, if you have the capabilities of watching it in 4K, please do, because I think it actually is worth a watch in that way. But yeah, that's my history with it. Anything you wanted to add on to that before we move into any sort of plot or production history or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say I'm no stranger to guyliner myself. Had my emo
Hell
days.
Yeah. Yes.
I did not look great with it, so it was only 2 or 3 times, but I did do my guyliner a couple times in high school.
I love that.
I just wanted to let you know you're not alone.
Oh my god. I literally did the whole fucking thing, dude. It was, oh god.
That's so cool though. Mine was just that emo with emo people. So
hell yeah.
We went to a show afterwards, but it's one of those, I was I could do contacts fine, but for some reason having this small chemical thing just coming towards my eye is not my favorite thing in the world.
No, totally understand that. Absolutely. So I guess before we get into any sort of the production history or whatever, I'm trying to kind of not take 40 minutes to talk about what the movie's about, actually, or whatever. But I guess Clayton, I almost called you Clayton. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
We love you, Clayton. Hey. But Shawn, if you had to like kind of elevator pitch this movie, if you maybe had met someone who's never seen this movie before and they were kind of like, yeah, what's that all about? What's The Crow? Like, what is that? How would you describe this movie to somebody who's maybe never seen it before?
Ooh, how simple do you want it? Because I can go down to assume it is a supernatural revenge love story, or we can go to a little bit more in depth, which is a recently resurrected man gets revenge on the people who murdered him and his fiance.
That's actually really good. That's actually a really good encapsulation, really. I mean, just like the baseline. But yeah, no, that's exactly what this is. It's a revenge story about a rock star named Eric Draven who is murdered by these guys, him and his soon-to-be wife, Shelley, is killed. A year later, then he is resurrected, and he is killing the people who pretty much kill him and his soon-to-be wife. And that's pretty much the crux of the story, I guess. And, you know, that's what it is. It's good old revenge, baby. It's good old revenge.
Gotta love a revenge tale. I love a revenge tale.
Mhm.
Like, it's Clayton will laugh at me for this, but I like justice in movies.
Right.
I know things aren't always black and white and there's lots of shades of gray, but sometimes you just want to watch the bad guys get punished. Like
100%. Like I also like those too. Like revenge is one of my I really do like it. Like, not just the movie Revenge on Shudder, which is a great movie, by the way. It's really pretty good.
Movie.
Yeah, it's really good. But even just like one of my favorite horror movies is Carrie, and that is all about revenge. Like, kind of, sort of, like, so yes, I recently, even though people can have their thoughts and opinions on it, I recently just watched the original I Spit on Your Grave, and for as divisive as a movie as that is, I enjoyed it, kind of, like, because it is about revenge. Of course, you have sexual assault revenge, which is a whole subgenre, and people can have whatever thoughts they want about that. I totally understand, but I'm right there with you. Like, I kind of like justice, and I'm not a fan of like having likable characters all the time. Like, I don't need all my movie characters or my TV characters to be likable. I need them to be engaging and dynamic, hopefully. But I also like some justice, baby. Like, I like having that kind of thing, because it goes back to storytelling and what it is. It's the good versus evil. It's the right and wrong of it all. You know what I mean? So I'm right there
Absolutely.
with you.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where, like, and you hit it on the head. There's two different kinds of like the sexual assault revenge movies.
Right.
Like, there's like revenge, and then there's like I Spit on Your Grave.
Right.
And those kind of do, like, I Spit on Your Grave really kind of started the genre. But I feel like revenge is like where it's finally like coming into a more intelligent like phase. And if you like, one of the things that I don't love about like sexual assault revenge films is like a lot of it feels like it's for the male gaze.
Yeah, that's also
like,
can happen.
Yeah, so like that's the one thing I don't usually love about them, which is why I like revenge so much, is because it doesn't have a gaze. It's literally just what's happening. Like, this is what's happening. You need to you either fight or you survive, fight or you die. Like, that's it's kind of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, not to get off track.
No, you're totally fine. I go on tangents all the time because I think it's true. Yeah, no, I Spit on Your Grave definitely kind of started it. Although you could argue that like The Virgin Spring was kind of that a little bit. Right. Kind of, sort of, because that's what's inspired like Last House on the Left, for example, and all that. But no, I get what you're saying. And, you know, if you haven't checked out like Miss 45, for example, I would check that out too. I think that's a fantastic movie
Abel
with
Ferrara, right?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. Like, please check that out if you haven't already. And listeners, please check it out as well. I think it's on Shudder, or you can find it. And then some other fun one. I just watched it not too long ago. Are you familiar with Sam Levinson?
I know the name, but I don't know.
Who did Euphoria and The Idol?
Yes.
So he did a movie with Hari Neff and a couple different people. I'm trying to remember the big people in it, but I know Hari Neff's in it. And then, Desi Young, that's her name. God, it's called Assassination Nation.
I've heard of
And
Assassination Nation.
yeah, I think you should check that out too. What's interesting about that movie is that there's a lot to it. Okay. It has many trigger warnings, kind of baked into it, but, I think it's interesting because there's a part of it that kind of feels like it's an R-word revenge movie, but also without the assault like that. So I thought that was really interesting. And obviously you can say what you want about Sam Levinson and all that, because people have their issues with Euphoria and The Idol and all that. But I also think like that, I think is actually a really good one. And it was on Tubi like this month, and I think it's still on there. So yeah, hit up Assassination Nation if you want to watch a little movie that you're like, oh, I like this. This is fun. And it's revenge. It's also some revenge because these girls are, taking back some shit that's gonna happen to them. So yeah. Anyway, we're gonna get back on track, but we're gonna talk a little bit about this film. But I loved your summary of this. We'll talk more about the plot and all that fun shit. But without further ado, let's move into some of the figures of this film. So this movie came out May 13th. Of 1994, which it's celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. By the time you're hearing this, I think it'll be either a few days beforehand or something like that, or maybe a couple days after, whatever. It's all good. This is a 102-minute runtime. I actually don't think the runtime is too bad. It pretty much gets in and gets out pretty easily. Thank God it didn't go any longer than it did, but that's cool. This is a Miramax film. Blech. But they did do some good movies, even though they were, ran by horrible men. But what movie studio kind of isn't, I guess, right?
That's not the truth.
Yeah. Seriously. And then $23 million of a budget. And that's all good and well. You have anything to say about that before I move into box office or anything like that?
Well, the $23 million budget wasn't their original budget. They were originally at $15 million.
Oh, really?
And after Brandon Lee's death, they spent $8 million in rewriting and reshoots in order to, and got it up to the $23 million.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Look at you. No, that's why I asked you, baby. That's how I asked you. Yeah. I was like, literally, I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know that. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
There you go. And we'll all get into, it's not the elephant in the room, but we'll get into the whole thing about it. So yeah, this did open at number one when it came out with $11 million, 11.7 million, which is pretty good. And then overall, this only made about $1,500 internationally. That doesn't surprise me because I don't think it would have gone international like that. But altogether, it made about $50 million. So was it like, yeah, 50.6 million. So not too bad for a movie that I don't think was going to even be released at one point. So, that's good. And I think that's also why we have the really bad sequels as well, from what I've heard. I'll ask you about them. Don't worry.
I've only seen a few of them, but they were not incredible.
Right. We have an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes with about 63 critic reviews, and then also about a 90% from about 250,000 ratings on there. So needless to say, this movie has done well critically, and it did do well financially. So you're kind of like, well, why the hell is it a cult movie, Jesse? I'm going to explain why it's a cult movie in just a little bit. I'm sure we could have a reason for that. And it has a 3.7.
A cult movie.
Absolutely. Oh my god. So yeah, but then we're looking at a 3.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd, the voice of the people. Do you have anything to say about like the rating or critical response to this movie or anything like that before we move into a little bit about cast and crew and productions?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up. This was pretty well received when it came out. I know Roger Ebert enjoyed it, and if you've ever talked to Clayton, you'll realize that a lot of his personality is based off Roger Ebert's reviews, even when he didn't agree with them.
Yeah, Roger Ebert's a weird. Yeah, he's a weird man. Listen, a prolific critic. For some reason, hated horror a lot, and also wrote literally the Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah, he didn't hate all horror. He just didn't he didn't like it when it didn't have anything to say. Like if it had something to say, generally he'd like it a little bit more. So I think he's a. I grew up watching Eberton at the time. It was Roper, I think, and some Siskel at the time. But I remember he enjoyed this.
Oh, nice. Good to know. Good to know. So yeah, a little bit about our cast and our crew. We're going to talk a little bit about them. So we have Alex Proyas. So he did this movie, I think is his most notable film, but he also did I, Robot with Will Smith in the 2000s. He also did Dark City. I don't know what that is, but it's another thing that he directed.
Ooh. Dark City's really good. It's very stylized like this is.
Okay.
And it's about a guy who wakes up and like the entire city, it's always nighttime. And like there's these weird people like chasing him around. And every like 12 hours, the city shifts. And so it's very, very stylized. It's a big, like, it's like a noir science fiction mystery.
Love that. I might have to check it out.
And it's got it's Jennifer Connelly and Rufus Sewell. Yeah. Kiefer Sutherland in the strangest Kiefer Sutherland role.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. It's got quite a good cast. It's actually really good.
Nice to hear. So yeah, writers of this movie are David J. Schow and John Shirley. So David J. Schow, I know he has been in the horror sphere quite a bit. He did an initial write of the Freddy vs. Jason movie. I think he was a part of that. Reason I know that is because he is in that Never Sleep Again documentary where he talks about that a little bit. But he also wrote, I guess him and this other guy wrote some of the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre like sequels. So they did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre the beginning. Horrible film, but it's sort of fun though. I really actually enjoy that. Already, I know. No, I don't think I like this one. Wait a minute. The Texas Chainsaw the beginning. Oh no, baby. If that's the one from the 2000s, I don't like that one. Ooh.
Yeah, that's the one with Jordana Brewster.
Oh no! I don't really like that one. Never mind. Shit, I thought it was the one with Renee Zellweger. They all.
No, they wrote the one before the one with Renee Zellweger.
Oh damn it! I also don't like that one either. God. Oh, the only thing that's good about that third one, let's be real here, is Ken Foray. Like he's the literal like saving grace of that movie. Oh,
that's
God.
Generally just Ken Foray's description in every movie.
Every single movie he's ever been in. Oh, no, it was the Jordana Brewster one. Listen, I mean, she's fine. It's just, why does she not scream in that movie? I talked about this when I talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Why does she scream? I don't get it.
Honestly, she just doesn't seem like to have the voice for a scream, so I'm kind of glad she doesn't. Like she's got
That's
that.
Fair.
Like I wouldn't want to hear like Kathleen Turner scream. Like not really.
That's very
scream,
fair.
really.
Also, I just did an episode about Serial Mom for another podcast. Go check it out. It's on Release Rewind podcast. Please go check me out. It's great. But yeah, we also talked about that as well. Oh my God. Did you also know you've seen this bad one from the 2006, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you know I mentioned this on my other episode about it? Did you know that not Matt Bomer, but the other guy who's in that?
Yes.
Taylor Handy is his name.
Yes.
And did you watch Disney Channel growing up?
No, I did not. I was a PBS kid.
Oh, it's okay. That's fine. So did you ever hear of a movie called Phantom in the Megaplex by any chance?
I did. Yes. Actually, I have heard of that one because I wanted to see it because I was big into horror as a kid. So oh, that sounds fun.
Go check it out on Disney Plus if you have it, but it's a really bad movie. But he's the lead in it, which is super fun. Also, literally, Mickey Rooney is in that movie. Why? I have no idea, but he is. Yeah. Really weird.
He would have done anything for a paycheck at that point, I think.
Listen, when you're an old man like that and you're just trying to hold on to something, baby, I get it. Listen.
Yep.
I'm not mad. Graham Revell is our composer of this movie. Big ups to Graham Revell. I mean, like I think he did Idle Hands. I just did an episode on that not too long ago. He's at The Craft, Bride of Chucky, Sin City, all these things. Like, I mean, Graham Revell, he has just such iconic like soundtracks and scores, and he knows young people music really well, I guess. I will definitely say that.
And he does this soundtrack is so haunting. It's so good.
It's really
and
good.
It's like there's just such a melancholy to it. And then he perfectly incorporates the like soundtrack itself. So like the songs in this are just incredible.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's one of my favorite like movie soundtracks of all time too.
Yeah, I agree. It's a pretty good one. We then have, tell me if I'm saying this right, maybe, cinematographer of Darius Wolski, I guess. He has a Z on the end of his name. Okay, baby, have fun. He did.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It was just
no, you
got it correct.
Okay, good. I was like, oh God, I don't know. But we have The Martian. He did The Martian with the guy who's not Ben Affleck. I think it's Matt Damon, right? I always get them confused. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
yeah, Matt Damon is the non-taller one.
Yeah, I get
Ben Affleck's the brown hair, then Matt Damon's the shorter one.
Yeah. And then he also did Pirates of the Caribbean. He also shot on that, which is kind of cool. Like, good for him. Yeah, I like the cinematography of this movie. Like you said, it was very stylized, similar to Dark City. I think this is very stylized, and I'm down for it. Like, I like it. And then we have the editors of the movie we have a dual team of Dov Honig and Scott Smith. Some of theirs that they did were Overboard with good old, I think, was it Goldie Hawn, somebody, whatever movie that was.
Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Yes, I have not seen Overboard, actually. I know, you're going to kill me.
No, that's okay. I've never seen it all the way through. I always caught it on TV. So it was either like towards the end or towards the beginning, and then I'd have to leave. So I've never seen the whole thing in one fell swoop.
Fair enough.
No judgment coming from me.
That's fair. We have Manhunter in the good old Hannibal Lecter series. So super fun.
Another great movie.
Yeah, I have to watch it. I've only seen Silence of the Lambs really like that. So, and I like that movie. So.
Oh, Silence of the Lambs is, of course, the best. Manhunter is actually my second favorite.
Okay.
It's very different. So, and like it's very different from what the rest of the Hannibal series becomes. And it's almost like an art house thriller in some ways. Man is much more focused on like the visuals of it than opposed to the story, but it's really good, really well done.
I love that. Yeah. And then also I actually just watched this movie and I really like it. It's to be honest, it's one of my favorite John Hughes movies, and I do consider it to be one of his. Some Kind of Wonderful. One of them edited that, which I really like. Some Kind of Wonderful. I think it's one of the better ones that they did. So good for him.
I've seen Some Kind of Wonderful.
Have you ever seen Pretty in Pink ever?
I have. I've seen Pretty in Pink. I've seen, of course, Breakfast Club. I've seen 16 Candles. I'm not gonna lie, and I know this will probably get me like, that meme of like what opinion's gonna get you like this, and it's got Flynn Rider from Tangled with all the swords around him. I'm not a big John Hughes fan.
Right. I got it.
Something about his movies just they haven't spoke to me. I don't find them. They're just not as engaging for me, but I also saw them later in life. I know a lot of people see them younger, and it kind of helps out, but I think I was like 21 when I first saw the Breakfast Club, and I was like,
Yeah, no, it's understandable. I think Some Kind of Wonderful, I liked it because I think it's way better than some of his other films. Pretty much it's a gender swapped Pretty in Pink. So literally it is Eric Stoltz plays the Molly Ringwald character, Leah Thompson plays the Blaine character, I guess, and then Mary Stuart Masterson plays totally coded as a lesbo, love it. She plays Watts, who's like the Ducky but way less annoying. So that's lovely.
Okay. Yeah. I do remember Ducky I was just like, This movie needs to end, please.
I listen. We love Molly Ringwald in this house. We love Annie Potts in this house. Okay, but Ducky, oh God, that movie. Sorry. I mean, I do like Pretty in Pink for the most part. He's a part of it I don't like. So that's me. Watts is way better of a character. Oh my God. I will say the blemish that Some Kind of Wonderful does have is that baby Candace Cameron Bure is in it. So ew. But I mean, she's only in there for like a few times, and she was like a child. Then she grew up to be a monster. So
yeah.
Gross.
I hope she enjoys making her bad movies and whatever channel she's got.
She can go fall in a ditch for all I care, but ugh, gross. But anyway, so yeah, that's our. Do you have anybody else that a part of the cast or sorry, the crew that you wanted to kind of shout out or anything?
No, I think you got the best of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, the big ones, you know.
For sure. And then our actors in the movie, we have Brandon Lee. He's known for this film. We'll talk about it. But also he is Bruce Lee's son. So he did start off doing some like martial arts movies because that's kind of what he's had a background in up to that point. But this is kind of his most well-known movie, and it's his last film role, and we'll talk about that. We have Ernie Hudson. I did not really know who this guy was, to be honest, but he is from Ghostbusters. I did not watch Ghostbusters growing up, so I don't really have much nostalgia for that, but I'm sure it's fine. But yeah, cool. Like, he's
actually my favorite Ghostbuster.
I bet. I would assume so. Is Bill Murray one of them?
Yeah, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and then Ernie Hudson ends up joining them because they need a fourth person apparently. And he's like just a regular guy. He's like, this is a paycheck,
right?
And it's just Ernie Hudson just brings so much likability to every role he's in, and
right.
I just love it.
I love that. Yeah,
he's in a. Have you ever seen Leviathan?
No, I have not.
It's from the 80s water horror boom. And it's recently, I want to say it's on HBO Max or Max, I guess it is just now.
Whatever. Yeah.
But he has an incredible line reading in it where I'm not going to spoil it in case you ever get to watch it, but it's a fun monster movie. He's just a fun. I like Ernie Hudson a lot. I think he's a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
He always plays an everyman, which I really like that because he does feel like an everyman.
I love that. Yeah. And he's great in this. You know, he's playing like a police officer pretty much. He has that antagonistic like relationship with the detective. He's such a badass in this movie. I really like him. This is a really good role. My hesitation because again, Annie Potts is there and we love her, but like I don't know how much of a Bill Murray person I am because I watched Stripes like last year, I think, because it was on Tubi. That movie is so bad. Like, it is so not good. So I'm kind of like hesitant on like what other Bill Murray movies are not good too. I don't know, but yeah.
Not everyone's for everybody. There are roles where I think Bill Murray is just like a little too much. I do enjoy him in Ghostbusters, but that also might be nostalgia glasses talking.
Sure. I just didn't think Stripes was that funny. And there are some good people. Sean Young's in that movie. Like, there's some good people, but I'm like, girl, like, this is so tired. Like, ugh. Whatever. Anyway, so then he's also Miss Congeniality, which I do need to watch, but I need to do that. But yeah, love that for him. Michael Wincott, so he was in Nope. I don't know who he played in Nope, but I guess he's in there. I like that movie enough.
He was the photographer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like or the camera guy, the one who's looking for the perfect shot.
Yeah,
that's Michael Wincott.
Love that with his voice and everything. Oh my god, amazing.
Oh, that voice.
He's also in Treasure Planet, speaking of voices, so he was in that movie as well. I always get that movie and Atlantis, the Lost Empire a little bit confused, because they also have a similar style of animation, like kind of sort of, but
And they came out like 2 years apart, I think it is.
like
A
literally
year or two. Like one is 2000, I think the other's 2001. It might be just a year.
like legit.
Sorry, I'm going through my mind file, so I'm like, I'm pretty sure one is like 1999 or 2000. The other one's 2001. But yeah, I used to too as a kid. Now I've seen Atlanta. I've seen them more. So Treasure Planet's okay. I like Atlantis better.
That's fair. That's fair. That cute got the glasses. Oh, Milo. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. We have Bai Ling. So Bai Ling is she plays Michael Wincott's girlfriend, question mark. I don't know what she is, but okay. Sister, something.
It's his half sister girlfriend.
Something who likes eyeballs for some reason. Whatever. Okay. She's in Lords
Very
of Dogtown. Yes. And then also in Wild Wild West, which I kind of want to do on the show, but I have never seen it. But we'll see. Also shout out to Bai Ling. She was in I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a movie called Three Extremes. Have you ever heard of this movie?
I have actually. It's a oh my gosh, what
horror anthology.
Anthology. Thank you. My brain was like, it was like,
yeah. Yes, it's a horror anthology with 3 different Asian filmmakers, and so she's in one of them. The things it's called Dumplings, I think, which then got turned into its own movie. And that movie's fucking wild. That is crazy. But yeah, so go check out Three Extremes if you're a horror anthology fan, and if you're into like Asian horror or any of that kind of stuff, which you can find me up in there. Yeah, it's good. And Bai Ling does she provides a service to women, and she's able to make some stuff grow us wild. Like, that's all I can tell you.
I know the story of it, so I know what you're talking about, and it is hard to tell without ruining anything. That was a very well done. Good job.
It is. There's a lot to it, baby, especially in our history now. So, God. Anyway, so then we have David Patrick Kelly. He is from The Warriors, and also John Wick. He plays one of the what's Michael Wincott's name in this?
Top Dollar.
Yeah, he plays one of Top Dollar's little henchmen, if you will. So that's fun.
T-Bird's the one with the car.
Oh, yes, he is. You're correct. And then we also have to mention good old Mr. Tony Todd, Be My Victim. He plays one of the guys in this as well. Sexy voice as always. I mean, come on, it's Tony Todd. What do you want me to do? You know?
Honestly, is there anyone with a sexier voice? Maybe Kathleen Turner. Those two
she has a pretty sexy voice as well.
Yeah, like those are the 2 sexiest voices of Hollywood, I'd say.
Oh, it's so good. Good old Connecticut boy too. I love that for him. He's a little New England boy. Like, oh, I love that. But yeah, is there anybody else in the cast you kind of wanted to shout out or whatever? I will say Rochelle Davis, who plays Sarah in this movie, baby, she's a child actor. You know, like she's okay, but she's not amazing or anything. But she does her best, you know, in the film.
Yeah, I like Rochelle Davis. I think she plays it. Is it the greatest child performance I've ever seen? No. Do I think she holds the film together? For the most part, I do like her voiceovers, which is surprising because voiceovers aren't usually my favorite thing in film.
Right.
But hers do kind of work for me a little bit because it feels like that's where some of the hope is coming from. Is like seeing a youth realize, you know, love is important and love exists.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like love is how you keep the people you love alive, you know, or
totally.
at least their memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, so I was thinking of this earlier when I was watching the film. I was like, who else could have done this role? Right. Like I was kind of thinking. Only people I could really think, and let me know if you think of anybody. This could have been because Rochelle Davis was born in 1980. So I was like, okay, what other actresses are born in 1980? Right. So I was like, all right, let's think of this. We could have had a Christina Ricci, maybe, if she wasn't already busy doing other things, you know, like that could have been cute. We also could have had maybe, I don't know. The other one that I thought would have been fun because she was a child actor, again, whatever, but maybe even like Marla Sokolov. Like I could see her do this. Like that would have been kind of a serve, actually. You know who Marla Sokolov is?
Yes, I know. Yep. My thought was always Kirsten Dunst.
Yes, yes, and she
would have
does.
been, because like this would have been the year of Interview with the Vampire, so she's a little bit
Right.
younger, but like
It would
she's
work.
she's a good actress.
Yeah, and I would also even throw into she might have been in that really bad Peacock movie, but Anna Klumsky. This would have been prime Anna Klumsky. I don't know. I also see it too because I think you have to have somebody who can play like a tomboy well, and I feel like she could do that in some way. So I like that. Yeah, I like it.
Good
Yeah,
point.
even like maybe maybe not. I was gonna say Dominique Swain maybe, but she's more like I don't know. She would have been interesting to say the least. But yeah. Anyway, those are some people, but yeah, I felt what you felt. Like I also would have liked Kirsten Dunst, but you know, again, isn't she in one of the sequels though?
Yeah, she is. She's in the one with
Oh God.
Eric Mabius.
Oh, we'll talk about it. Don't worry.
Oh, there's some things to talk about.
Oh my.
Hers
Anyway,
is the best sequel, though. I will give her
okay,
that.
that's good.
The movie is, but like she at least, I've never seen Kirsten Dunst phone in a role, so
That's fair. That's fair.
she at least is always good.
Yeah, you'll hear another Kirsten Dunst movie this month too, so don't worry, it's coming. But yeah, so a little bit about like this production. So we got to start actually from where this movie originated. This movie actually is based off of a comic book series by James O'Barr, which was released in 1989. I would like for you to now take it, Shawn, a little bit. Can you tell me anything about like the inception of this like particular comic book series, or maybe how it might differ a little bit from the film? Maybe I'd love to hear kind of what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was it, like you said, it was created by James O'Barr. It was so the original concept of the graphic novel or the comic series was a way of him dealing with the death of his fiance. She died by a drunk driver, and so he put all of his anger and his sadness and his angst into creating this comic book series. And so there's a lot of anger there's a lot of anger and cynicism to the comic series that while this film does have some of it, it's not quite as much. And there are some pretty big differences. The character of Sarah does kind of show up, but her name is Sherry. She's a little younger. But her mom does have basically the scene with Fun Boy that is in this film. Eric is not a musician in the comic books. He's a mechanic, and I don't think you ever learn his last name and the in the books. It's been a while. I was trying to get through an entire reread of them, but I didn't get through all of it. But from what I remember, they only give his name as Eric, and it's just a lot darker. Like there's scenes where like when you first get introduced to Tintin, he's buying a gun and he immediately just shoots the old woman across the street to see how far it'll shoot. Like like so there's stuff like that. It's just way more cynical, but it's very good. The visual style this movie really does kind of pull that visual style off. And it does a great job of adapting the comic book into real life. And I know Alex Proyas actually wanted to shoot this entire film in black and white, which is the comic book series is in black and white, but he does a great job with color. I like his use of color, and even the it's kind of like a bleached out color palette for this film, but it works really well.
I love that. Yeah, I love you giving that information for us, like, because I'm not much of a graphic novel reader really, so I don't think I would have ever really read it, honestly, but it's good to see that like some of the stuff did carry over, which is nice. But yeah, so this did start off as a comic, as you said, and so a couple of things with like him trying to get it pitched to studios. Apparently one of the meetings that they had, the studio's vision was that they wanted to do like a musical of this with Michael Jackson in the lead, which would not have worked. And then around the time of the publication of that, writer John Shirley, he pitched Angry Angel to Caliber Press, who had turned that down because it was too similar to The Crow. And Shirley then sought this comic out and decided to adapt it into a film. So O'Barr was receptive, and he agreed to workshop the film with John Shirley and producer Jeff Most. He turned down a significant offer from New Line Cinema in the process, and he oversaw about 3 different script treatments before then collaborating on the first 2 drafts of the screenplay. And so Shirley penned the 3rd and 4th draft by himself, which gave him screenwriting credit from the WGA. But then let's see what else happened. So the addition of producer Edward Pressman then gave this further momentum. Shirley would be fired during the development after a clash with a development head. And so that's how David J. Schow comes in. He was brought in for rewrites. So that is probably why they both get the credit technically, because it started off with John Shirley, but then he got fired because he couldn't keep his lips tight, on what he thought, I guess, which is fair. And so and then Australian filmmaker Alex Proyas was brought in to do this. Is there anybody else that you would have thought would have been a good director for this? Or do you feel like Alex Proyas is a pretty good fit? Who do you think else could have done this maybe? Or would you have been interested in seeing try to handle this?
Oh, it's kind of a hard call. I think that Proyas's directing it absolutely works for this film. I think he has a extremely good vision. So I don't know. This is going to sound weird, but Oliver Stone at this time was doing like Natural Born Killers,
okay,
which also has kind of like a comic book like feel to it, even with its like highly stylized violence and just stuff like that. So I mean, I wouldn't throw an Oliver Stone directed The Crow.
Right.
I don't think I love this movie, and I love everything for it. But I wouldn't mind seeing an Oliver Stone version. I feel like it'd be it'd probably be more in tune with like the cynicism and violence of the comics.
Right. That's fair. Makes sense. So I think he does a good job too. And I can't think of anybody else who could have done this as well. So then Paramount Pictures picked up the rights to this, and they slotted a release of August 1993 in this. So initially, when they were casting for the film, some early people that they wanted were River Phoenix, which would have been interesting to see. And even Christian Slater was early considered as well. So Shirley and Most, they pushed for Slater, while Pressman wanted River Phoenix. But Brandon Lee was suggested to actually play this, but they were unconvinced, fearing that he wasn't really suited for the material. But Lee ended up winning over the author, and so he like dropped 20 pounds for this because he was like a bulkier dude. He's a muscly dude, and Eric needs to be kind of this lean rock star dude. So he was able to drop some weight. He worked closely with the crew to kind of choreograph his like action sequences, being that he did come from a martial arts background, and it was also doing stuff like performing most of his own stunts, which was kind of cool, but then also removing a subplot due to its Asian stereotyping, because obviously Brandon Lee, for those who don't already know, obviously is Bruce Lee's son, and he's an Asian man, so at least Brandon Lee is somewhat half Asian, even though he may not quote look it, I guess. But that's kind of cool, like that he was like, we should take that out because that's super racist. Let's not do that, everybody. And so then this movie started production in February of 1993 in Wilmington, North Carolina, and was scheduled to last for 54 days. So, all right, cool, great. We're making a movie. This is going to be like I mentioned this to you over message. And listen, this movie is not campy in the slightest. However, in some of the club scenes and stuff, I was getting a little bit of Barbed Wire energy. Have you ever seen Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson Lee?
I have never seen Barbed Wire. It is on my list of films to watch.
Baby, you need to watch it.
It is literally on my list of films, and I'm like, one of these days I'm going to watch it. And now you just made me want to watch it more.
So it's not. So the thing is that like Barbed Wire is also not overtly campy in its plotting. However, if you watch like the scenes in the bar in there and then the scenes here in the bar, you're just like, wait a minute, like, oh, okay, love that. All right, cool. We're making a movie though. Like, this is gonna be great. And well, they were shooting, in North Carolina, filming a scene where Eric is supposed to be shot after witnessing the beating and rape of his wife or his fiance, and they were they were pretty close to finishing everything up, I think, right? Like they were, pretty soon they were going to be finished. And well, if you want to tell me a little bit about what may have happened after that, what exactly happened after they were going to do the scene?
Yeah. So Brandon Lee was about 3 days. He was about 3 or 4 days, I think, from the end of filming in a scene where, like you said, where he's being shot. They had already sent home the firearms coordinator or the person watching the firearms.
The armorer, I believe.
Yes. And ended up having a untrained prop assistant with it who did not check to see if so essentially they replaced the blanks that were in it. They essentially had dummy cartridges in it and they exchanged them for blank rounds, they have a live powder and charge and primer, and it looks like you're actually shooting a gun, but there's no bullet in it, so there's nothing in there. But the prop assistant failed to check the barrel to show that there was unfortunately dummy cartridges stuck in it still. And actor Michael Massey, who plays Funboy, fired the gun in the scene, and unfortunately debris that was in the gun fired off at the same rate as would a real bullet and struck poorly in the abdomen, and he ended up unfortunately passing away. Oh, it's rough,
bro. Like literally 3 or 4 days like from being done. So he shot this whole movie, like literally, like was almost done with everything and could have just lived his life and like all that. And it's just so mind-boggling to me. And as I said, we were going to talk about it, and we do need to talk about it. Not that we get on our soapboxes all the time here at the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, but it's like, oh God, like that's kind of the partly, I think, why this movie has the following it does, because of just how tragic the production ended up becoming. And I think that also in a way kind of helped with its like box office success, because they're like, oh bro, like we have to go see this movie because that the actor in it died, right? Like, oh my God, that kind of a thing. And so, but as you said, I mean, it's so tragic because personally, I think Brandon Lee did such a good job in this movie, and he makes you care for this character. And I think he could have absolutely had like obviously following in the footsteps of his father of like having a cool action career, like, but it would have been different because he's different than his dad. You know what I mean? So I think he absolutely could have been like, he would have been like
he would have been a star.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in this movie, he absolutely is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is like, I know they kind of fought around, kind of said, do we release it? Do we not release it? Like, this is a movie that would have made him a star. This is a star-making performance. Like, he is the heart and soul of this film. Like, it's so well. It is an incredible performance.
Right.
And it's almost like but it's also now his legacy.
Yeah.
So and that's completely okay. This is a beautiful legacy to have. It's a very tragic legacy, but it's still a beautiful one. And so I do, like, I'm glad they did release it. I think this is an incredible, kind of epitaph for him, because in all of this incredible style, there's just that sadness, and it permeates the film, and it comes from both the characters, and you also get it from like knowing in real life, like you're watching a star be made on film, and unfortunately that star never was allowed to take off past this. And it adds to this film in some ways, because the tragedy of this film the tragedy of this film plus the tragedy of the story, it's just all palpable and just an incredible
Weirdly serendipitous, I feel.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just really well done, very tragic. And I know I read in there that Obar regretted writing the book because of what happens to
Mhm.
Brandon Lee. And I found that just, God, how heartbreaking would that be?
Yeah. But the thing is, though, is that, I mean, it's not even his fault that he wrote this. He was doing that to deal with his own grief, right? So, like,
hmm
it's sad that then the author of this graphic novel is going to be like, oh, I shouldn't even wrote this shit. Like, what is it? And it's like, well, no, it wasn't your fault that that happened. But it's
Well,
like, but you can feel that way. Yeah, no, totally.
yeah, and exactly. But it's also like, if you're thinking it, if you're thinking in terms like this, it's a little bit of survivor's guilt. Whereas, like his fiance died. He does this art, he
Yeah.
does the comic series. They make a movie based on it, and the guy dies in the process of making it. And then I think it's also he knows how it feels because
Yeah.
at the end of this film, of course, it says for Brandon and Eliza, and Eliza
Mhm.
was Brandon's fiance, and
Yeah.
so I think he knows the feelings that happened because of it, and in
Right.
some ways, they wouldn't be there without his story. So, I mean, I understand where is it
Right.
his place? Yes, but does it make it less valid for him? No.
No, absolutely. It's just like, it's this weird kind of just like, yeah, it's this weird kind of serendipity of it all in a weird way where it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's spooky, if anything. It really is. And then also even like Michael Massey, like he's gone. And I believe I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw some sort of like interview with him or something. And I think he hopefully has been able to work past it, but this fucked him up really bad. Like it made him feel so guilty about what happened that it really screwed with his mental health and just his life in general.
He took
You
a
know what I
year off of
mean?
acting.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
And then he said and I read this online, as of at least 2000, like 2006, 2007, he still hadn't seen the film.
Right.
And he has passed away in that time. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever watched it. So
Yeah, no, it's just like very sad to see that too, of like how it affected this guy. I also mentioned it in my little fun facts, but like Michael Berryman, who is known for being in like Weird Science, and he's in Hills Have Eyes and all that. He was actually in the movie as well as one of the guys, I think, or one of the villains in this movie, and a lot of his stuff got cut. I think kind of because of the whole tragedy that happened as well, I think. Like, so, and even he, like, again, everyone on the set feels a certain way because they're like, no, I got to work with this guy who was like super cool and thought I was gonna be, yeah, like I was working with this star in the making, and then fucking it ends so tragically. You're like, wow, that fucking sucks, dude. Like, yeah.
yeah. And it's hard because like you really do, like he is in so much of this movie. Like this movie is,
Mhm.
he's of course the star, and like he would have made it. Like this would, even without all of the tragedy,
Right.
I still think this would have been a hit. Like there was nothing like that,
Sure.
nothing really like this coming out at this time. And
Right.
it's just like, I mean, we had Batman a few years before,
Right.
but Batman in and of itself, like Batman Returns was not as big,
Mhm.
but we still have very few films that were this stylized, but were as violent as this were.
Agreed.
But they also had like there's an incredible love and there's a glimmer of hope in this film,
Mhm.
which not all of them have. Like I don't like Batman Returns is really good, but it's very not like a very cynical film.
Yeah.
Whereas, and it does end, spoiler alert, Catwoman's on the rooftop, but like
Right.
they're never going to be together. No movie's ever made. We don't have to think about it. But
Right.
this
Exactly.
this one, I don't know. It feels like it just feels so tragic knowing
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, it does. And I think again it's one of those things where it's bittersweet, if anything, because yes, the movie ended up doing pretty well, like financially and all that, but at what cost kind of a thing, you know? So it's just, yeah, it's crazy. And then it's just it also just kind of talks to, I promise we'll move on, but like, you know, I just like talking about this kind of shit. Like, you know, it's just that much more of an example of just the things that you do as an actor and just the safety that needs to be taken, and the precautions that have to be taken for this. I mean, you know, the fact that, you know, I loved the Twilight Zone movie when I was a kid, and I still do like that movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but knowing that that like has this kind of legacy to it where it'll always be marred by the fact that Vic Morrow and two children were killed in it because John Landis didn't know when to say no. You
Mhm.
know, like that kind of a thing. Of course, you have
Well,
that. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, and you're absolutely right. And it's things like this, it's things like these that lead to changes that need to
Yeah.
happen. Because, like you said, the Twilight Zone, even The Exorcist, like uh,
Yeah.
Linda Blair had, has permanent back problems because of her role. Like Ellen Burstyn has a destroyed her coccyx in a scene,
Yeah.
because she was pulled so hard, like it legitimately hurt her. Her cry of pain in the film is real because she's literally in pain.
Right.
It's one of those things where like there is such a thing as a director going too far. Like this is a
Yeah.
movie. Like you at some point you have to, you have to put your people ahead of what the story is. It's called acting. They will
Mhm.
fake it. Like
Right.
so, and like the Twilight Zone, like that was one where the director just didn't listen and
Hmm.
said they were too. And there is such a thing as gross negligence in some things. This one, I think, was more just such a tragedy. But it's
An
stuff like this
accident.
that really,
Right.
yeah, and like this is just things that like they need to lead to changes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was too late for Brandon. But
Yeah.
hopefully it felt like things were better for a long time until we've heard recently.
Yeah, with
uh,
Alec Baldwin movie Rust, which, you know, is still not come out, and who knows if it'll come out or not, because yeah, like he literally played with a gun on set and it killed like the literal DP of that movie. So, or
yep.
like somebody in there. So, ugh, hot mess, hot mess.
Yeah.
Like it's just, or even like I like me some E.G. Daily here and there. You know who she is, right? She's a voice
Hmm.
actress and all that. She
Yes.
even talks about like how one of her like long-term boyfriends that she had, you know, before she had kids with Rick Solomon, after that all happened, but before that, back in the day, she was with a guy, John Eric Hexum, who was on like TV stuff and whatever, and he accidentally, on a set where there was a fake firearm, a similar thing happened, and this happened before The Crow, I think. But he literally like put a like fake prop gun up to his head, but it happened to have like a, you know, something like this happened, and he literally died, and she had to be there with him in the hospital. And that's something that just is on her conscience at any given moment, you know, of like, wow, that's, and she talked about it in her one woman show she had years and years back, just about how her life is like weird, and how it's been really cool but really weird at points. um
Yeah.
but you
I'll
know,
bet at that point
I'll
you're just
bet.
like, how do you not feel like you're not cursed? Like you're just
Right. And then also people could maybe say like, oh, is the crow cursed or whatever? I don't think it is, but like, you know, it's weird thing, you know? And even people would say that about Bruce Lee in general. They're like, oh no, like this whole thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not getting into all that conspiracy shit. Like I'm not doing all that. But we'll move past it. I just thought it was obviously an important thing to talk about because it is kind of the legacy of this movie, is the tragedy of it. So I can only hope that it's going to hopefully, or if anything, we've hopefully gotten better. I don't know, dude. Maybe, maybe not. You
film
gotta
is a
change.
Yeah, film is one of those mediums where I do things. Hopefully, things are changing for the better. It feels like there's so much money thrown into it that people feel like they have to. There's just a rush sometimes, and like not having the proper armor there,
Right.
like it's not taught, like having a prop assistant who doesn't know how to deal with weapons. I'm at this time, like I know armors are much more like they are on set when the gun is there.
Yeah.
And like things like this, like as much of a tragedy it is, I am glad this movie was released, because I couldn't imagine going through all of this and putting my heart and soul into it, and to have a tragic accident, just like destroy it. Like now at this point, it is my life's work,
Yeah.
So I'm just, every time I watch this, I understand why people wouldn't want it seen, but like, it's also just such a beautiful,
Yeah.
like, it's just such a beautiful, like, send off for Brandon.
Yeah. In a bad circumstance already, at least it's a really good piece of art, and it's cool, and I think also it's safe to say, I think, having something like The Crow, if we didn't have something like this, I don't think you would have some movies like even like a Sin City, or what are some other films that you feel like kind of come after this that are similar to it? Like, I think this did have a certain impact on filmmaking. Can you think of any other films that are kind of like, you feel like are influenced by this?
Oh, absolutely. I would say even Blade has some, as
Okay.
like in Blade, at least not a lot, not in like the city itself, but I do think
Right.
some of the stylized aspects of it, I do think are take off of this. Like you said, Sin City, The Spirit, which is a not great movie.
Right.
It's fun to look at, but like it is, don't watch it for the plot because you ain't getting anything. But yeah, I mean, this just influenced so much, like, and it also changed, it kind of brings a little bit more, it brings a little bit more of like a gothic tenderness to like the mainstream.
Yeah.
Like, if it does feel like there's like, even Batman Forever, I think takes some of the like city itself from this. So I mean, like Gotham feels a little bit like, this is supposed to be like Detroit basically,
Right.
but like there are scenes in that I feel could be almost be pulled from this film.
Right.
So, and like those are the ones that just immediately come to mind. But definitely, like, if we were going for right after, I feel like Batman Forever is definitely one that was like inspired by this.
Yeah.
A lot of gothic architecture, stuff like that.
I can understand that for sure. Like, I see it. But yeah, so I think that's kind of what that's been. Now I do want to mention before we talk about any sort of like, standout scenes that we have or characters or any of that stuff, I do want to hear a little bit about what you think of some of the sequels. You don't have to go into like super deeper depth or anything, but if you could give me like an idea of what those sequels are about, and kind of like maybe what your favorite one is or something like that. Like, what do you think of them as a whole? Maybe just because I've seen them, so I'd love to hear about that a little bit.
No, absolutely. Okay, so I just realized I've seen all three sequels. Wow. I thought there were more. I didn't watch the TV show though. So the second one is almost a continuation, a little bit of this one. It's not, but the character of Sarah does come back in the second one, but she's grown up and she's an artist now. So has experience, and it's a father and his son who are murdered by a drug lord. It's kind of a lot of the same thing. Sarah's painting, like Sarah is an artist who's like painting like visions of like the killings and stuff like that. It's good. It's okay. It's not the greatest sequel ever made. Like, is it? No, it's not the best, but it is serviceable, I guess. It's just a whole lot of the same thing, which is, I guess, if you like that, that's okay.
Right.
And then we have the next one is Salvation, which this is the one with Eric Mabius and Kirsten Dunst. And Eric Mabius is a man who is accused of his girlfriend's murder, and then he's actually killed. He's given the death penalty, and he ends up being killed for it. And then comes back to find out who actually did it. And that one, like I said, Kirsten Dunst is never not great.
Right.
She gives her best in everything. Eric Mabius is a little bland, but it's one that that's the one I enjoyed the most. And keep in mind, this has been over 10 years since I've seen all of these, and so that one I remember, that was the one I liked the best. And then there's The Crow Wicked Prayer, which was that was just,
That's
I mean,
fair.
and it sounds like it'd be great, but like Edward Furlong is the Crow.
Oh no.
So like he's already unhinged, but like it's like David Boreanaz and I think Tara Reid.
Oh
Is it Tara
God.
Reid?
Oh,
I think.
oh my.
Yeah, and they're like a cult that like kill Edward Furlong, and I think Emmanuel Shrieky is his girlfriend.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, like it is one of those. I remember I had it as one of those, like, you know, like they'll
Like
throw,
bundles
like, a
or
bunch of
some
bad
shit.
movies. Exactly, like 6-pack of movies. I was like, oh, okay, cool. The Crow, Wicked Prayer. We'll give it a try. And I was just like, oh my God, this is a slog. I wanted it to be much more crazy than it was.
You're like, it didn't even go bonkers enough. This is bullshit. God.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, if a movie can go crazy and like it doesn't have to be great, but if it's fun, I can appreciate a film. But like, I don't even remember having fun with that one.
No, that's fair. Totally fair. Jesus. Yeah. So, I mean, and also, I think it'd be remiss if we did not talk about what our thoughts are on the remake that will be coming out later this year. I will start. I watched it before we hopped on this call, and listen, boy, look, Bill Skarsgård, great, lovely actor, not bad. Fine. This whatever they're doing with this, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. Like I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that guy, you know. I don't want to be whatever, but I'm also just like, bro, like I don't know how good this is going to be honest with you. So that's kind of my thought on it. Like, we'll see what happens, I guess. I feel like there's a reason that this movie has not gotten remade and it's had issues with getting remade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's funny because Bill Skarsgård actually looks really close to how the comic Eric Draven looks, which is great. Like he has that like lankiness to him.
Yeah.
Like that lanky, muscly, strengthy, you know, like
which you need, right.
Yeah, and I like FKA Twigs. It's very, whereas this film felt stylized, it's almost like a dark fairy tale. This one feels like almost too comic booky. Like
sure.
there were shots in it that I was just like, okay, that's a little too heavy handed. I am trying to reserve judgment. I used to hate, you know, like remakes, and
yeah,
this is something like this where I think it has such a legacy. I don't love the idea of remaking it, but if you're going to do it, at least like hopefully they do it right.
Right.
You know, like if it gets an entire generation of people going and watching the original,
right.
You know, it's at least done something good for it.
Agreed.
But
yeah.
I do think it looks a little too like 2024 for it.
Sure. And I also, what I don't really, I will also say, I second what you say, Shawn, but then also, like, I don't think, listen, I love gore a lot. Like, I am a horror hound, like, love it, great. I don't like all the gore in the movie. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I like that. Like, I don't think it's necessary. Why do you need to shoot that guy in the face? Like, I don't understand. Like, oh God.
And it's funny because that actually is more the comic book, and maybe it's just because I actually prefer the movie. Maybe it's because it's the original iteration for me, and I feel the legacy of it so much more. But like and even in the books, like it is very graphic. Like he at one point just like cuts one dude's like legs off, like. He cuts one dude's legs off, like, you know,
yeah,
and then like interrogates him, and then like it is bloody, and it is, but it maybe because it's in black and white, it doesn't feel as
maybe
graphic, whereas this one it just feels like graphic for graphic's sake.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah,
and I'm a gore hound too, so I agree with you.
Right, I'm just like, why is this here?
Yeah, like it just feels like they're trying to go too comic booky. Like there is such a thing as too comic book movie.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And I don't know. I'm gonna reserve judgment. Like I said, did I love that teaser or that trailer? No.
Right. Really.
Am I gonna see it when it comes out? Yes. Fair. Just to give it my own thing.
Yeah.
But I don't. if it's not good, we're not buying it.
There was a waste and whatever. Fine.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah,
thank
no.
you for making this, and congratulations to you, Bill Skarsgård, for having like 3 action movies come out in 1 year. Good job for you.
Like awesome, right? Yeah. So I think we'll move on to some of the. I think we already talked about some of the characters. There's not too many to talk about. I mean, obviously, a lot of people's favorite characters is going to be Eric Draven because he is this weird anti-hero, I guess, in a weird way, but I love him. And he's like kind of the main point. I mean, I do love Ernie Hudson's character in this, and that's kind of about it. But like everybody else is like just a villain or like, Sarah. Pretty much. So there's kind of no point to talk about like the characters and deep dive into them like that. So I will say before we move into any sort of like standout scenes we have or anything like that. Now I know you love this movie a lot and I love that. So do you think there's anything in this movie that kind of falls flat for you or that you think could have been done better? What are some of the negatives you may have about it? Even though I do know that you like this movie, but with a like also comes like what sometimes their shortcomings are. So I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Sure. I mean, one of the things, it's not very, you kind of said it, like all the characters are basically just like cardboard cutouts of people, like evil for evil's sake kind of thing. I do like what they do, like, and even she's not given a lot to do, but like the mother, like Sarah's mother, Darla, the scene where he's after Fun Boy, but like it's just gives him a little bit extra incentive is to like help her realize like your daughter needs you, so stuff like that. Like I think that's where it lives in the gray, because like he is doing horrible things to horrible people, but like they are horrible people. And so, but like all of these characters are basically just cardboard cutouts, like T-Bird, the group of them, they do have big personalities, but it's just kind of like evil for the sake of evil, as opposed to like, they don't really have any kind of motivation. So I don't know. It's that my biggest thing was probably the characterization. Like Eric Draven is given a lot to do. He of course, has his like anti-hero's journey. Or hero's journey, I guess, is kind of a little bit of both. But for the most part, everyone else is kind of like we're cardboard cutout.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the characters are kind of the weaker part, if anything. But overall, I think that's kind of, it's like that. And like, of course, like the child actor, might not be the best, but she's a kid. Like, I'm not going to put that much on her like that. But yeah, everything else kind of makes up for it. I feel like just the stylization, the look of this film, the performance from Brandon Lee and some of the other people as well. I think they do well at their performances of their kind of one note characters. That's fine with me. I think there's that. So are there any particular like standout scenes of this movie that you just really enjoy and like, and I'd love to hear about some of those as well, just to kind of see like what you have for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The cool thing is it's basically every scene in this. Like
Okay.
every scene is so well done. One of the standouts is of course T-Bird's death.
Yes.
And I actually kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because
Sure.
in one of the things T-Bird says when he is about to kill Eric and Shelley, he says, "Abashed the devil stood and felt how awful goodness is," and that is actually a quote by John Milton from Paradise Lost.
Okay.
If it can be taken in two connotations, so essentially in the original, the word awful would have been like filled with awe, and I find that to be absolutely fascinating if you take it from either direction, because he says, when he says it, he says, "Abashed the devil stood and felt how awful goodness is." Like it's an evil man, like saying like goodness is awful because like it doesn't get you anywhere. And then when he is in the car and he goes, when he's like, it's a really real world, which I say far too often in my life. It's like, this is the really real world. But he's like, he goes, "Abashed the devil stood and felt how awful goodness is." And like at this moment, like this is both how awful goodness is because of how like he's literally about to blow him up, and then how awful, like filled with awe, because it like goodness came back to set the wrongs right.
Right.
Like it's I just find that such a like just a beautiful duality to this to just this line from a it's like a book written 400 years ago,
Right.
300 years ago. So that's a scene that's always stuck with me. I would also say I do love when Bai Ling gets her eyes ripped out.
I love that
It always
too.
makes me laugh a little bit.
Yeah, I do like that too. And I love that because like the crow is the guide for Eric through the whole movie and everything. It's kind of what helps resurrect him in a way. And just the fact of like at the end of the movie when Sarah is, kidnapped by Top Dollar, brought to the roof of this church, and Bai Ling's character is kind of the right hand woman to him, and the fact that she gets her eyes pecked out by the crow is just like very funny to me, but it's also like yeah, it's just like really I like that one too, I gotta say as well. That's
Yeah,
fun.
it's a good for you moment for a crow, and I never thought I'd say that in my life.
Yeah, no, totally. I think for me, like any standout scenes that I have, I would say the ending definitely is, I do like the kind of ending as a whole and how it all kind of, comes together. I also think like a lot of the scenes where Eric is coming back to life, I thought was really good. I think they're just seeing his like hot self, like shirtless and like, all this stuff. I mean, come on, like I'm a simple gay. We're two simple gays here, Shawn. Okay, like come on.
And it's beautiful. It's also beautiful because he's almost like a newborn, which
Yeah, he
like
is.
he's very much like born again. Like, and
Yeah,
he when he gets back to the apartment, that's when he like really learns what happened to them, and
right,
it's like he's finally reborn into like Eric Draven as opposed to
right.
just like this being that just woke up like in a box, which also how horrible would that be
Yeah.
to wake up in a box
Oh God,
like
horrible.
just buried alive. Like it's Eric Draven and Buffy, those are the ones I'm like, damn, that's
Exactly. Yeah.
not.
But I like a lot of his scenes with that. And then also just him killing these guys. Like you were saying T-Bird's death, but a lot of these ones, I just think they're so dynamically done. And I really do like just, how he gets this revenge on people. It comes back to that. And I just really I really love this character as a whole. Like I just think Eric Draven is very well. It's a very interesting character that I think is, he looks cool. I think he's doing a somewhat noble thing, kind of like a weird Robin Hood type thing. You know what I mean? Like killing the bad guys, but also, yeah, I like that. But I think we've said a lot about it. We talked about the production, we talked about characters and some of our scenes, the plots, the plots there, like we already very well talked about that earlier today. But I think to kind of wrap it up and to close it out a little bit, we talked about it already, but what kind of legacy do you think this movie has had, and why do you think it did get that cult following it did? I kind of mentioned a little earlier, but I'd love to hear from what you think of why do you think this movie has the following it does, and why is it still kind of hold up? Does it still hold up 30 years later, and yeah, I'd love to hear about that, and as we wind on down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've already kind of talked about it, but the biggest legacy is, of course, going to be Brandon Lee. Like, this movie is a love letter to him and his art and his craft. And he was a star. Like, he would, if when this came out, he would have been a star no matter what had happened, the tragedy. But I think it's moments like that that give this film a lot more of gives it its reverie. Like, people, like, this is still a movie that is very well regarded. It's, in my opinion, it is one of the best comic book movies ever made. And it's one that people, I think, tend to forget about just because it's so well done. Like, people are like, oh, it's based on a comic book. But yeah, I mean, of course, his biggest legacy is Brandon Lee, but it's also just the style of it. Like, this movie is, I'm a sucker for a tragic romance. Like, I love a tragic romance. Like, give me this, give me The Fly, give me, movies where it doesn't always work out, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes love is not enough to keep you alive, but love can last forever. And that's something this movie really kind of drills into you. Like, the ending words of this film are, like, buildings burn, people die, but true love is forever. And I think that it describes not only just the characters of Eric and Shelley, but also it's a love letter. The film itself is a love letter to Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
So
Very well said. Very well said. Yeah, I think for me, this movie, like, I'm glad I've been able to watch it later in my life, and I can appreciate what it's doing and what it is. I think this movie absolutely has the cult following that it does because, yes, there's a tragic story behind the production of this movie, and that can already get people sort of like, interested a little bit, perhaps in a morbid curiosity sense. But also, I think this movie is like a tragic romance, and it is something where I think a lot of people who are kind of dejected from the mainstream could seek solace in this. Eric doesn't look the same as everybody else, and even though he's ridiculously hot, obviously, but like, I think a lot of people who were alternative and gothic and those types of subcultures could really kind of lean into and take this character and this story and really run with it and keep it to their heart, and I think that's why it's had this following 30 years later now. Like, it still has people who love it, horror fans who love it, action fans who love it, comic book people who love it, all of that. It all kind of has this interesting audience appeal in a way. And I do agree that this is a wonderful love letter to the legacy of Brandon Lee. And for all the more that it's tragic, I also think, like, yeah, there's a level of an uplift that I think this movie can have. And I think if you for some reason have listened to this episode and have never seen it, good for you, I guess. But please go out and watch it. I mean, like I said, it's on Paramount Plus. It makes the rounds every so often. You can try to find it somewhere. I do think this is at least with a rental, if anything. Just if you maybe never seen it. But I'm very glad to be covering it. I'm glad to have you on as a super fan of it to cover it with me. And yeah, I think this movie mostly does a lot of good things, and I'm very happy with it. There are some shortcomings of it, like any movie has, but overall, I think it's a pretty fun ride. It's an action, it's a horror, it's a tragic love story, it's all the things. So it checks a lot of boxes for me, and I'm glad for covering it. But thank you so much, Shawn, for coming on my show today and talking to me about this movie and having this really fun conversation. I'm really happy to have had you on. And I know you're going to be coming back as well. So as we wrap things up, if you want to plug your show a little bit, plug your social media, if you want people to find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun, and I just have to make Clayton watch it so he can listen to this episode, which will come even closer because we like to listen to each other's episodes. But yeah, I'm Shawn. I'm one of the co-hosts of Men Who Like Movies podcast. We are on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, usually under Triple M Pod. That's Triple MMMPOD. And if you want to find me, just me, I'm in the same places, and I'm at Murph the Smurf, MURPHTHE I'm also on Letterboxd as well under the same Murph the Smurf. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got.
Sounds good. And if you want to follow the show, you can do so on social media. You can follow Cult Cinema Circle on Instagram at Cult Cinema Circle and on Twitter at Cult Cine Circle. Letterboxd is at Jesse, JESSE KREMP, all one word. If you want to see the movies I've reviewed or see the movies I've watched, all that fun shit. That's all cool. Please rate, comment, and subscribe on your podcatcher of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Give me 5 stars, 1 to 2 sentence review, all that good shit. Email me at cultcinemacircle@gmail.com if you want to be a guest, or if you want to give me feedback, or you want to say hi, or any of these things. I'm all open to all of it. A little bit about what we're doing next week. So I did mention we're doing a little Kirsten Dunst movie next week, but we're going to do kind of a pinnacle of sad girl sad girl cinema in this movie that we're going to do, and it makes its 25-year anniversary that it was premiered at Cannes. We're going to do the Virgin Suicides next week, y'all, and I'm excited for that because Kathleen Turner, and Kirsten Dunst.
Oh my God, you're gonna make Clayton's days. So I've never seen the Virgin Suicides. I know. Don't yell at me.
It's
But Clayton, you're gonna make Clayton's week because he loves that movie and has been trying to get me to watch it forever. And I know he's wanting to schedule it for ours someday.
Oh, don't worry. It'll be all good. It's be so fun. I own the Blu-ray of it. Like, it's Sad Girl Cinema. Ooh, it's all good. Yes. But as we normally do on the show, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. And remember, it can't rain all the time. Take care. Bye.